And welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. The first item on the agenda is the election of chair. Could I call for nominations, please?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Stephen Allen Bridges.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, councillors. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to my fellow councillors for that nomination. I'm Councillor Stephen Allen Bridges. I'm on the Licensing Committee, and I'll be chairing this subcommittee of the Licensing Committee of the London Borough of Merton. My other two panellists are Councillor Janice Howard and Councillor Russell Makin. The other speakers, and there will be other speakers, will introduce themselves when they come on to speak. This hearing is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. Please be aware that as the meeting is being held virtually, there may just be a slight delay. Participants will be muted when they're not speaking to reduce any background noise. Now, if there are any technical difficulties, please do let the clerk know. In the event that any of the parties here, and we want to hear from everyone, loses connection and is no longer present in the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes whilst we resolve any technical issues. In the event that the issues cannot be resolved and one of the main speakers or any speaker is not able to speak, will be rescheduled for another date as soon as possible. Amy, any apologies for absence?
None that we're aware of, Chair, no.
Thank you. And to my fellow councillors, in particular, any declarations of interest? Thank you.
Okay.
Now, the subcommittee will follow the inform all the parties, and I want to tell all the parties that will follow the hearing procedure, a copy of which was included in the notice pack sent to all parties. I'm sure all parties have received that. Can I ask the legal advisor to inform everyone that we have held a pre-meet?
Yes, the committee had a pre-meet just to read the papers and understand what the application involves. And no legal advice was provided, really. That's if legal advice is provided, it will be recorded in the decision notice in due course.
Oh, sorry, Guy, could you introduce yourself?
Sorry, that would help. Guy Bishop, solicitor, principal lawyer for the council.
Thank you very much. And I now turn to Elizabeth MacDonald to introduce herself and inform us if there are any technical issues we should be aware of.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, Elizabeth MacDonald, I'm licensing officer today. We're not aware of any communication between any of the parties that hasn't been put in the report that's before you today. One point, two of the representations, excuse me, did mention a closing time of a premises in the area. I checked our records, and the premises that's stated actually has a late night refreshment closing time of 2 AM, 7 days a week. The representation stated 1. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you very much. I'm aware of that. That's more than fish and kebabs. I thought they opened a bit later than 1 AM. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as I explained at the outset, the hearing order and order of speakers will follow the main procedures included in your agenda pack. And we normally start with the presentation by the applicant. And I'm asking Amy if the applicant is here.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm the applicant is not present.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we will now have the presentation by the responsible authorities, I think, and then we'll obviously bring in the other interested parties. If the applicant turns up, we'll go back to the applicant. Is that appropriate, Guy?
Yeah, I don't see why not, if they're late.
Okay.
Would you like me to run through the application very quickly? Would that help at all? Or you're
Yes,
happy that you
please.
did it in your pre-meet? You'd like me to run through it quickly?
Yes, please. Yes, if you can.
Okay. As the report states, the applications for a new premises license to extend the hours for late night refreshment of an existing restaurant and takeaway business. The premises is located at 117 London Road, Morden. Late night refreshment is the supply of above ambient or hot food between 11 PM and 5 AM the next morning. The applicant has applied to supply late night refreshment until 4 AM the following day. The covering letter that's attached to the application is on page 5 of the report. That states that the idea is to close the restaurant until 11 to eating customers and rely on takeaways after this service is finished. So the applicant, I would have thought, would have liked to have expanded on this, but obviously they aren't here to give you any more information. We've received 3 representations, and anybody making oral representations would need to stick within the bounds of the written representations that they have made. Any new information that they wish to bring in should be agreed by yourselves before it's brought into the public domain. And obviously the steps that the subcommittee can take when deciding the matter are stated in section 2 of the report. Hope that's sufficient for you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think we'll go straight to the presentation by the responsible authorities, and one of those is the Metropolitan Police. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. The Metropolitan Police South West licensing team received a...
Can you introduce yourself? Sorry.
Oh, I do apologise. My name is Avril O'Brien. I am a police constable employed by the Metropolitan Police, currently based in Wimbledon Police Station for the South West licensing team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Metropolitan Police South West licensing team received a copy of an application for a new premises licence under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for Mirs Rooster Limited on 117 London Road, Morden. The operating schedule shows a commitment to promote the licensing objectives. However, it does not define what exact measures the applicant intends to take to promote the 4 licensing objectives. If I could refer to the revised guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 in relation to steps to promote the licensing objectives, paragraph 8.47, applicants are expected to provide licensing authorities with sufficient information in this section to determine the extent to which their proposed steps are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives in the local area. Applications must not be based on providing a set of standard conditions to promote the licensing objectives, and applicants are expected to make it clear why the steps they are proposing are appropriate for these premises. Also, paragraph 8.48, all parties are expected to work together in partnership to ensure that the licensing objectives are promoted collectively. Where there are no disputes, the steps the applicants propose to take to promote the licensing objectives, as set out in the operating schedule, will very often translate directly into conditions that will be attached to premises licence with minimum of fuss. In light of this, I then attempted to make contact with the applicant of this premises license application. I sent on the 23rd of September, I sent a set of proposed police conditions to the email address provided on the application form. I believe you have a copy of my proposed conditions, but I will just read through them quickly. Number 1 was restaurant conditions. Number 2 was delivery of late night refreshment. Number 3 was CCTV, 4 security incidents, and number 5, lastly, is conduct of premises. I received then, sometime later, resistance from Mr. Dudley Headslop, who is acting on behalf of the applicant. We didn't have any time to, well, he was reluctant to discuss the proposed conditions. We didn't get to use the consultation period, to its full capacity. And I was met with strong objection and resistance. And I do believe you have a copy of a letter that Mr. Heslop sent addressed to the licensing subcommittee. And it was at this point of receiving a copy of this of this letter, which he sent to the subcommittee, that I knew that we weren't going to be able to come to any sort of agreement. So it was at that stage that I then submitted representations on behalf of the Metropolitan Police. But in light of the fact that the applicant clearly rejects the licensing subcommittee and the police's role in the licensing application, I strongly object to this application in its entirety. I do believe that the licensing objectives that would be undermined is prevention of crime and disorder and prevention of public nuisance. Sorry, Chair, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Avril. Thank you for being here. And thank you for clearly setting out the position of the Metropolitan Police to this application. I'm just asking if the applicant is here and has heard that, because they have an opportunity to question the police.
Can confirm they're still not present, Chair.
Thank you. We'll then move on to questions by interested parties to the police. We have Councillor Southgate, and I think we have Siva Parry. Councillor Southgate, did you want to question the police? You're muted.
You're muted.
Amy,
still.
have we muted as hosts? We'll move on to Siva. Can you unmute yourself, and would you like to ask questions of the police?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm not a legal person to question the police. Police is, yeah, I agree with the objection. I'm not an expert on this matter, but my concern, we have put it in writing, and I have seen the other objection as well from Councillor Peter Southgate and others. I totally agree with them, and I am the person directly affected by this change, because I live on top of the restaurant, and I'm a resident of these particular premises last 33 years.
Thank you, Siva. Siva. Siva, we'll bring you back in later. Do you have a question to the police?
No, I'm not questioning them.
Okay, we'll bring you back.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
We'll bring you back with your other concerns.
Thank you.
Councillor Peter Southgate, you're still muted. There you go. Over to Councillor Peter Southgate.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one question for the police, if I may. I wondered whether you'd had a chance to talk to any of your colleagues in the Merton Park SNT, as it used to be, particularly PC John Weatherhead, about crime and nuisance in this area, which he and I have often spoken, particularly drug dealing from number 99 London Road.
I have been made aware of antisocial behaviour and drug taking in this area, a lot of public nuisance and delivery drivers hanging about, urinating in public has been another one that's been raised. So yeah, I have been made aware that there is issues in this area relating to this business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Southgate. Over to my panel members, that's Councillor Janice Howard and Councillor Russell Makin, if they have any questions to the police. Councillor Howard, first.
Yes, I have one question. In your correspondence with Mr. Heslop, initially you said that 2 o'clock in the morning would be acceptable. I'm just curious to know where 2 o'clock in the morning came from as a time?
We were trying to come to an agreement, like, you know, what would be fair on his case, like trying to work together. You know, we want businesses obviously to do well. However, we've got to keep in mind, you know, the residents and such like. So I was trying to come to a reasonable agreement, if you like. But as I said, I've been met with resistance.
And Councillor Makin.
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, are the applicants here now?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We will then move on to a presentation by any of the interested parties. So questions by the applicant to interested parties later, but the interested parties, do we begin with Councillor Southgate?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Perhaps rather like the police, that the 2 a.m. was suggested because it does coincide with the closing time for Morden Fish and Kebab near the tube station. I'm grateful to Elizabeth MacDonald for pointing out it is indeed 2 a.m. rather than 1 a.m. as I had believed. But there are a number of reasons for seeing Morden Fish and Kebab in a very different light, and I think it's worth considering those. Number one is that it's close to the tube. When we had an all-night tube service and all-night buses, you could see a certain logic of allowing Morden Fish and Kebab to stay open until those hours. And secondly, it does not have very much in the way of residential accommodation nearby. It is largely commercial. Those premises are not occupied during the sort of early hours of the morning. What we're offered here, or what's proposed, is a very, very different setting. And it is, in fact, and I've for nearly 20 years represented this area and know it quite well. There's a lot of residential accommodation nearby to 117 London Road, with flats above, flats behind in York Court and Morden Court, York Close and Morden Court. And whether it's ideal or not, but there are also, a lot of people with young families in those flats. So there is disturbance. There's disturbance to Seba's own family from the noise from had long battles, firstly with fumes from extractor fans and now with noise. So without a better understanding of the business model proposed here, and the applicant is not present to answer those questions, I am curious, to say the least, as to why it would be thought worthwhile to stay open until 4 a.m. This more out of the way location in a residential area. I mean, is this going to start to shift the centre of gravity away from the tube station towards Roosters as an area where people start to congregate because they've got nowhere else to go at that early hour of the morning? That this is far from desirable in terms of prevention of public nuisance and even crime and disorder. So in the absence of the applicant to set out a coherent case as to why they wish to stay open till 4 a.m. and indeed how it will make economic sense, I rather do agree with the police that the application should not be granted. I mean, it's we can't infer as to why it would be why they might want to stay open to that hour, but I can see all sorts of negative consequences of so doing. So I do agree with the police that the application should not be granted.
Thank you very much. We now move to Siva. Sorry to cut you up earlier, Siva. That was a time for questioning the police, but now, Siva, you can put your case forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I've been a resident last 33 years in this premises. I have seen many people coming and going downstairs. I live straight on top of the premises, the respective restaurant, and we have numerous problems. But unfortunately, I do believe in a philosophy, live and let live. We have been tolerating so many things that the extractor fan just above my roof, just bedroom, and that's they, even though legally permitted to open till 11 o'clock, they go on till 12 o'clock, exactly 12 o'clock. And then if this is going to be, and we can only have a piece of peaceful sleep after 12 o'clock. My wife is a teacher, and she has been teaching the last 20 years in one particular close by school, and I have a daughter, young daughter of education. And then I myself, I work from home, we tolerate this noise level, the fumes and everything time to time. We have numerous problems, and then some of our respected councillors, they are aware of this problem. And I'm not a troublemaker, but we like to accommodate as much as possible. This is beyond our expectations, the limits which we can tolerate. We have put everything in writing for everybody, to the respective people, to see our concerns and our problems. And this is if this is going to be granted till 4 o'clock, and by the time they clean up and finish, it will be 5 o'clock. That means from 11 a.m. till following morning 5 a.m. We can't have any useful activities at home, including specifically the sleep. Is not acceptable. And that I have recorded the noise of the noise level, the extractor fan, the exhaust outside. It's just above my bedroom. It's on the roof, and it's very, very noisy. And always at 12 o'clock in the night, once it's stopped, and I'll always say, all right, okay, Heathrow is closed. It's like living in Heathrow runway. I'm sorry to say that I'm not specifically against any individual or any institutions, but this is something we have been tolerating, because understanding, yes, I'm living on top of the restaurant, but there are limitations. And I personally, I will be very, very sad if this is going to be granted to them. But
Thank you.
And it will be a nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will at each opportunity ask Amy if the applicant is here, because the applicant now has an opportunity either to present themselves or to ask questions of the interested parties. Is the applicant here, Amy?
Thank you, Chair, but no, they're still not present.
Okay. Thank you. Now I turn to the police. Averill, do you have any questions of the interested parties?
No, Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. I now turn to my panel, my subcommittee colleagues. Councillor Makin, Councillor Howard, do you have any questions of the interested parties?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That then moves us on to ask the licensing officer for any comments or clarifications. Elizabeth.
Hello. I would just say that to be careful between public and private nuisance. It may be that the extractor fan is a statutory nuisance and should be dealt with under noise legislation, and is perhaps not a public nuisance, as the objective would state. Otherwise, I have nothing else to add.
Thank you. And over to our legal advisor for comments or clarifications, Guy.
I think obviously my advice was going to be mainly in deliberations when you consider the application. You'll be aware that the deregulation various deregulation legislation allows the premises to trade between 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. without having a license for food purposes. So really you're considering what effectively is a late night refreshment license from 11 p.m. until 4. you've heard the evidence of the parties involved. I don't think I'm going to give you any legal advice at this stage because none's necessarily needed. But we'll see what happens in due course.
Thank you very much, Guy. And any closing statement by the police?
Thank you, Chair. No, I just simply want to say, you know, with my evidence that I have provided, I would strongly suggest that we object to this application in its entirety to uphold the licensing objectives as stated. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. This is now an opportunity for a closing statement by the applicant who's not here. Can I just confirm that the subcommittee, my colleague, Councillor Howard and Councillor Makin, myself, will read their application closely, we'll read their letters and their suggestions closely. They're not here to represent themselves, but we will be committed to reading all their paperwork once again to make sure we've not missed anything out from the applicant. Now we move to any closing statements by the interested parties, Siva and or Peter Southgate. Councillor Southgate.
Yeah, thank you. And really just to endorse the recommendations of the police that the licence be not granted. I think the applicant done himself no favours by not appearing, but the statements he's submitted are, I find, rather truculent, rejecting efforts of the police to reach a negotiated position, and in fact really suggesting that they're not even competent to make conditions or recommend conditions. When in light of this, it does not augur well for Roosters playing a responsible part in the community, particularly if you are asking to open at these late and essentially antisocial hours. So I think it would be right not to grant the licence at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Siva, did you want to come back in?
Yes. I mean, it's not only a personal, personally we are affected as a family, and it's a public nuisance as well. And we live on the first floor, and then we have got a staircase just outside my house, and the whole night, and I see youngsters coming in, sitting and taking illegal substance and leaving all the food residuals in the morning, and then we have to clean it up. And then plus, unfortunately, I have to say, and they use the staircase as a cover up to urinate and do the other undesirable things, which is it's not only for us and for the entire the balcony. The people live along the corridor of the balcony. There are about 10 houses, and it's a nuisance for the others as well. And plus the residents living opposite our flats, which is your close, and they have been complaining. And I'm so sorry that nobody's around in this meeting at the moment, but I am speaking on behalf of my neighborhood as well. And I can only humbly say I'm a resident of Merton for the last 33 years and in the same place. And I strongly object this if you're going to decide in favor, and we will be very, very sad to see this going to happen. I strongly object, and I will be very grateful that you will, the councillors and the authorities will take our interest as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siva. The subcommittee are about to retire to closed session now. I invite the legal advisor and the clerk to join us to provide advice for us. Once I've closed the hearing, our clerk will disconnect you, sadly, from the meeting room. All those present, all parties, will receive a written copy of the decision notice within 5 working days. I therefore now close the hearing. I want to thank everyone, Elizabeth, Averill, Councillor Southgate, Seaver, Councillors Howard and Makin, and also our legal advisor, Guy Bishop, and Amy Dumitrescu. And listening in has been our new Director for Democratic Services, Richard Seedhouse. And so thank you all for your attendance. I now close this